I want to talk about what happened in Germany yesterday. But before I do that, I want to rewind the clock back to 2017 and tell you a story about a man that I got to know fairly well back then. I'm not going to say the gentleman's name, but he was an ex-Muslim and he lived in Belfast. And he, do you know, to be honest with you, I don't even know how we first got in touch with each other. It was just after we started Veterans Against Terrorism, and I was quite prominent on Facebook and making quite a lot of noise. And again, the connections were building as they tend to do when you start being active. This gentleman used to do videos with me, and I'm not kidding. Those videos used to make my toes curl. I mean, this was the first time I'd been involved in speaking publicly about the issues that were facing the country. And this guy would sit opposite me and say the most horrendous things, all of them true incidentally, but the most horrendous things about Islamic theology, about Muhammad, about the history of Islam. This man was an Islamic scholar. He was what's called a Dawi, or somebody that does Islamic evangelism, a bit like Ali Dawah and Muhammad Hijab. That was what he did before he left Islam. And when he left Islam, his hatred for Islam was equal to his love for Islam before he left. And what he did was, and this is why this story is relevant. What this gentleman did was, he was from Bangladesh. What he did, he built a list of ex-Muslims. His whole reason for doing what he was doing, or so he said, was to bring ex-Muslims into the ex-Muslim fold, create an ex-Muslim community and protect them from the extremists who would no doubt target them if they knew who they were and had their contact details. So he was gathering lots and lots of information and data on ex-Muslims. And that seems to be very similar to what this maniac that drove into a crowd of innocent people at a Christmas market did yesterday. Because he was apparently building a network of ex-Muslims. And the parallels don't just finish there. I remember speaking to this gentleman one time, and he started saying the strangest things about how they should take the battle to the enemy, in other words, radical Islam. And I said to him, look, that's not what I'm about at all. And then he sort of laughed it off and you know, made out like he was just being lighthearted. I didn't think any more about it. Fast forward about a year. So we're coming up sort of 2019, I think, about the time of one of Tommy's court cases. We're all at the Old Bailey, and I meet up with this guy, and he says, Richard, he says, I'm going back to Islam. I was like, what? I said, you don't believe any of it. I said, you've done videos with me saying how much you think it's a dangerous, evil ideology and you don't want anything to do with it, and you're doing that as an ex-Muslim, and now you're telling me you're going back to that? So what's going on? Oh, my family's been threatened. I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going back to Islam. Last I heard, apart from one video, that was the last time I spoke to him anyway. But I saw a video about a month later. So he's sitting there preaching Islam again, as a Dawi again, after walking away from Islam. And his wife, who I know was an ex-Muslim, was dressed in the headscarf. Now that's how quickly he went from being an ex-Muslim to going back to Islam. And why is that relevant? Well, look at the parallels. This guy, who incidentally was a Shia Muslim, so obviously he was an enemy of the Saudi regime. But who was he? Who was he connected to? Was he connected with the Iranians? Was he connected with an Iranian intelligence agency? What was he doing in Germany? Why did the Saudi authorities want to extradite him? Of course, Saudi Arabia, a very repressive regime. So these are very, very deep questions that need deep answers. And they're not the main questions. The main question is this: why did a maniac drive his vehicle into a crowd of people yesterday? And what do we know about him? Well, we know this. We know that he was from a Muslim background. We know that he was wanted by Saudi Arabia. We know that he was an asylum seeker who the German government was protecting from the Saudi regime. That's what we know. So we know a man from Saudi Arabia, an extremist regime, was wanted by Saudi Arabia for allegedly being an extremist. We also know that he was an asylum seeker that came to Germany to supposedly make a new life in Germany. We also know that he was saying some very erratic things on social media. Yes, he was posting things by the AfD, but he was also posting things that seemed to be favouring Hamas. So there's a lot of confusion in what his exact motivations are. But what we do know is he was a migrant from Saudi Arabia. And when we look at what happened to my friend, when he went back to Islam, it was sudden. It wasn't like he agonised over it for ages. I spoke to him in the car one day. A month later, his wife's dressed in a hijab. Maybe not even a month. It was a very, very short period of time. So the reality is this. If that man had not come to Germany from Saudi Arabia, those families would not be grieving today. And I think specifically about that little child. And this is the difference between our culture and the savage barbarism that man brought to the streets of Germany yesterday. In our culture, we had a young child who was, I'm sure, like every other young child in Western Christendom, in Christian civilization, every other young child is looking forward to Christmas, excited about Christmas, excited about presents under the tree, excited by the Christmas market, excited by the upcoming celebration. And what's the celebration about? It's about the birth of Christ. So at the very heart, any of these attacks on Christmas markets, and I don't care what the mainstream media are saying about this guy's motivation. I know a lot of right-wing people. I don't know one right-wing person that is going to drive their car into the middle of a Christmas market and start killing people. Not in a million years. But what we do know is that a Saudi who was wanted for extremism in his own country drove his car through a crowd yesterday, killing people. And that little child, do you know what? I don't know if it's a boy or girl, but that little child would have been looking forward to Christmas Day, looking forward to the excitement of. I'm not sure how much Santa Claus is a big thing in Germany, because I know there's different traditions in different parts of the continent. But you just imagine if it was a little child in England or Scotland or Ireland or Northern Ireland or Wales, the excitement, or America, the excitement that child would have been feeling, and the excitement the parents would have been feeling, giving that child a lovely Christmas. And this was the build-up. They cared enough to take him to a Christmas market, or her to a Christmas market. They were doing the right thing. They were celebrating their tradition. And now their Christmases are forever going to be devastated because of this savage. And that's the thing here. The thing isn't whether he was ISIS inspired, whether he was inspired by some sort of deranged lunacy within his own brain. That's not the issue. The issue is that man came to Germany as a guest, and he's done nothing but abuse that hospitality by what he did yesterday. But not just abuse it, despise it and try to destroy it. And that's symbolic of so many that have come to our culture, that have come to our civilization with one aim: the destruction of that civilization. Whether it's with a vehicle or whether it's through the political process. Now, I don't know if this man was an Islamist or not. My guess is that he was, and we've been gaslit. That's my guess. And he was even possibly gaslighting us. But that's not the issue. The issue is there are tens of thousands, probably millions of people in our civilization. Canada, America, New Zealand, Australia, England, Scotland, Wales, the continent, Spain, France, Germany. Millions of people that are here, destroying the system, tearing it down instead of building it up. And it is about time that the whole system is looked at. And anybody that is here with malevolent intent should be arrested, detained, and deported. That's what should happen. That's what we should do. That should be government policy. If you come to this country from Saudi or Afghan or Iraq or Somalia or wherever you're coming from, and you have the intent, or Pakistan, and your intent is to destroy our culture and destroy our society. You should be arrested, you should be detained, and you should be deported. Whether you want to do that peacefully or not. See, this is the problem. In many ways, the peaceful so-called Islamists are far more dangerous than the terrorists, because the peaceful ones are subverting the whole of democracy, whereas the terrorists are doing absolutely abominable atrocities. But the result of the peaceful Islamists is far worse in the long run than that of the violent Islamists. What do we do about this? We vote in politicians that will do what is needed to be done to stop this. And as Cher said, to turn back time. See you all soon.